dear. So as ever, I am probably going to waffle for a little while on here to wait to see who's around and who wants to join for this evening's Facebook Live and this question time. And so much so, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of a moment. I didn't really check out my hair or anything like that before I started. So cheers, got my very small mug as normal. And we are going to look at a topic this evening that could be looked at from multiple angles. So the title that I'm starting off with, I've just realised I'm a little bit wonky. So the title that I'm starting this off with is How to Live a Courageous Life. And kind of the reason that I've looked at it this way is partly through a conversation I had a little while ago. Somebody kind of threw the word courageous in, and it made me think a lot about what I was doing and how when I'm doing it, oh, hang on a second. Oh, something strange is going on. Is that when I'm doing it, it does make me realise that courage to a certain degree is something that I don't class myself as a courageous person if I'm really truthful. And then I notice that when I talk with others about the kind of life that I live and the sort of things that I've gone through and where I am now, the word courageous comes up quite a lot. Courageous, brave, and they're interesting because I think both of those words, courageous and brave, for many of us, I know certainly for myself, that it tends to conjure up things around kind of slaying dragons and fighting off demons and winning over the bad guy, basically. And I suppose when I use the words brave in a lot of contexts, it kind of does make me think that somebody has to do battle with something else, and I suppose I've always perceived it as quite a physical thing to do. Is to live a courageous life, you have to have that kind of external battle. And the same with courage. Courage has always been something for me. To live a courageous life has always been something that I've thought you have to overcome something really significant and huge. So I want to give us another way of looking at that this evening, and in a way that I think could help us start to look at confidence in a different way, and obviously more specifically your self-confidence. So for those of you that are just joining in, hello. Please do make sure that you pop in and say hi so that I can give you a recognition, because on these pages it doesn't pop up and say who's online, so I don't know who's there, so I can't give you a name check. Equally, if the conversation, the topic that I'm starting with this evening of how to live a courageous life is something that you have immediate thoughts on, or if you've got immediate questions on, or if you're coming to the confidence question time with a completely different question that you would really like to have looked at, then please do pop it in the thing below. Do the thumbs up, the hearts, share it, whatever it may be. You might go, oh, wow, and want to do that. But let me know that you're here. And as I say, if you've got any questions or anything like that, then as we're going through, I can do whatever I can to, if I've got answers or practices, then I can offer those out to you to support you from wherever you are now to go to where you want to. So this is really about you, how you can live a courageous life. And as I was saying a moment ago, as well as inviting you to share and like and do the loves and ask your questions and comments and say hi, is that the word courageous courage brings up a lot for a number of people, and we've got our own kind of meanings wrapped around the word, and that when we wrap that around the words, it kind of sometimes can prevent us from experiencing what that really is. So I want to initially start with a frame up that you may or may not know as to the word courage and what it actually, where the word courage stems from. And just so that you're aware, there's a very courageous fly that's going around at the moment. So if I get slightly distracted, then I do apologise, but he's obviously wanting to join in. Hi, Chris. Your signal is breaking up for me. Yeah, that's the thing. I am going to, I'll tell you what, let me do something else and see if that makes a difference. It may or may not. That may help. It may not. It's still saying connection is weak. So this is the only challenge I experience with Facebook Live, is that sometimes it does cut in and out. So let me know, Chris, if that's any better. And if not, then there's not a lot I can do, unfortunately. So the word courage stems from the French cœur, and the French word cœur means heart. So when we are speaking about the word courage, we're actually talking about with heart. So if we're talking about speaking with courage, we're talking about speaking from our heart. Or if we're doing something with courage, courage is us being quite vulnerable in a lot of senses, is doing it from that heartfelt place. Now, I think that a lot of the time we stop ourselves. I will put up with it and concentrate on you. Thank you, Chris. So I think a lot of the time we stop ourselves from doing that. We stop ourselves from doing something, whatever the thing is. It might be speaking out, it might be public speaking, it might be going for a job interview, it might be having one of those difficult conversations with a partner or family member or friend. It might be performing for the first time. It might be doing your own Facebook Live. It could be anything. But we prevent ourselves from doing things, and quite often don't see ourselves as either able to handle life or to be courageous and actually attempt and do things from the heart, because it's as scary as it can feel, like a vulnerable place to be. And a lot of that is wrapped around the thoughts and the beliefs that we create about ourselves. Now, I know for myself that I had thought that being courageous and living a courageous life meant that I had to go out there and achieve great things and push beyond the boundaries of what I thought was possible for me. So I've done fire walking and arrow breaks and bar bends, and cycled across Cambodia. I've walked 100 kilometers to through the Andes to Machu Picchu. I've abseiled. I've done what I would perceive as challenges. One of which, obviously, this evening. That seems to have, so we'll go with that. And I thought that doing these challenges were going to help me live a courageous life, because I'm, well, look at me, I've stood at one of the highest places in Peru. I've cycled across Cambodia, blah 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 blah. I thought these challenges are, because they were physical challenges, I was showing myself that yeah, I can do this. And while they were great at challenging the beliefs that I had about myself, what I've come to realize is that actually I don't have to go and do the physical challenge, as it were, and be courageous in the way of doing that, in order for me to challenge my beliefs and my thoughts. And to me, the reason I framed it up this way of how to live a courageous life is because I think, and I'm kind of going by other people's feedback here, I did something last week which to me is part of my own spiritual journey. It's part of my own personal journey. It's part of my own development of who I am, my own self-evolution, for want of a better way of putting it. And to me, it's normal, it's easy, it's, okay, easy is maybe not the right word, it does have its challenges, but it's not something, it's not like abseiling or firewalking or any of those things. All I did for 5 days and 5 nights is that I was in silence. I was on a silent retreat. Now, I've spoken to a number of people, and including somebody this evening, just before I left the office, and they asked me, how did your retreat go? And they're really intrigued by what it is that I do, and this crazy lady who's got the office next door. And they'd said that they'd been chatting about me going on this silent retreat to somebody that they knew, and how they said they were torn, that they weren't sure whether it was something that would be of great benefit for them, or whether it would be something that would drive them insane and be really hard. And to me, that's where living a courageous life comes in, because actually the purpose of the silence, the courage that you need to go into silence, and I mean no reading, no writing, no listening to music, no communication at all, just being with yourself or who you think you are. And that's the key thing, is that it's your thoughts that you're with. And most of us spend most of our life avoiding the thoughts that we have about ourselves, avoiding the thoughts that we have about ourselves, or avoiding the beliefs that we have about ourselves, or we buy into them and indulge them and kind of just go, yeah, absolutely, they're right. They're totally right. Now, our brains, our thinking brains, will come up with the evidence to prove that the thought that it's just offered us, or the belief that it's just offered us, is true. It will do it. It'll give us evidence to prove that people don't like me. I put a post out today which talks about, been very open with the fact most people who know me know this, so it's not great shock. But when 15 years ago I attempted to take my own life, and I'm very proud to have failed. Now, I've lost my train of thought. That's very interesting. What happened for me in that process of putting that out there, going through that process of why I got to that point, it was my thoughts that drove me there. It was my beliefs that drove me to believe that no one cared about me, for example. Because I was sat under a tree, I'd had an argument with a boyfriend at the time, and I was very, very drunk and had taken a lot of drugs anyway before it got to that point, probably hence the argument. And then stormed off, and no one followed me. No one came to look for me. So that reinforced my thinking brain, went, see, no one cares. No one cares about me. I'm useless, I'm worthless, no one cares, nobody loves me, and they won't even miss me when I'm gone. So what's the point? And I went and bought even more alcohol and as many drugs as I could get my hands on, of all sorts. And as I said in my post, I don't know how my body survived the toxins that I took that day, but it did. And it's amazing how healthy it is and resilient that it is. And it made me realise that it's our thoughts to live a courageous life. We need to, I beg you, please, we need to start challenging the thoughts and the beliefs that we have about ourselves. What we think we're possible, what's possible for us, what we think we're capable of, what we think, really, who we think we are, which I know is a very big, deep philosophical question. But let me share this. This story with you. So there's a coach called Michael Neal, and he was working on a BBC. He's an American coach, but he was working on not BBC, but it was a British TV program, and he was helping people overcome phobias. And during the rehearsal, the studio rehearsal, they had, I can't remember how many it was now, people sat in chairs, and the floor manager and Michael stood there, and the people who had these phobias, and some of them were arachnophobia and whatever, a snake phobia, and I think there might have been a rat one or whatever it may be. And they're sat to ECG heart monitors, so you can watch their heart rate basically. And Michael stood there, and the floor manager comes over with these clear empty boxes, which is Perspex empty boxes. And these empty boxes, they bring them up to the people and they're put in front of them. They're empty. They can see this. Absolutely can see that there is nothing in there. And the heart rates stay exactly the same. And then as the floor manager steps away, they said, oh, and by the way, obviously this evening, that will contain a spider, that will contain a snake, that will contain a rat, and whatever it may be. And what Michael noticed in that moment is all those people who had those phobias, their hearts immediately started racing. And he thought for a moment, but there's nothing there. They can see that there's nothing there. And what came to him in that moment is, we're not afraid of what we think we're afraid of. We're afraid of what we think. Because the fear that was being created in that moment, what was totally in those people's heads. And I know that I've certainly been in experiences like that, not specifically with anything that I'm afraid of in that sense, but in various different situations where I know that it's the thinking that's going on in my head, the thoughts that are up here that create the sensation. And I believe and understand how real that feels. I'm not denying that in any sense at all. But it is, to me, the courage that we can have is when we hit that pause button and take a deep breath and get courageous with those thoughts. Because part of the thing that came to me last week when I was on the retreat was we were thinking a lot about who I, and we were being asked to think about, what am I and who am I, and those wonderful, very easy to answer questions, hence the purpose of them. And I remembered this incident with Michael Neill and his story of, I'm not afraid of what I think I'm afraid of, I'm afraid of what I think. And it made me think about, I'm not afraid of I'm not afraid of what I think I am, I'm afraid of what I think about me. So what I mean by that is when we really start to question and challenge what are the thoughts and the beliefs that you have about you, and whilst your brain is going to offer you the evidence and go, well, I'm never going to pass my motorcycle test because, well, let's face it, I failed my driver's test a number of times, so I'm never going to be able to do that. Or every time I've asked a guy out before, he's always said no. Or every relationship I've ever had has always gone wrong. Or I never get those big contracts. Or I always fail at interviews. Or it doesn't matter what it is. The brain is always going to give you the evidence to prove the thought that you're having, the belief that you're having about yourself is real and true because it believes that it is. Your job, she says, wagging the finger, to really, truthfully, honestly live a courageous life is to start to challenge those thoughts. I know that there's a number of you, at least 2 of you that are on here, and thank you for all the thumbs up, Chris. I know that there's at least 2 of you on here that are in the process of starting up your own businesses. Now, if that's not courageous, then I don't know what is, because there's that part of us, I know there was when I started mine, who am I to start a coaching practice? Who am I? I've just about got scraped 1A level. I didn't go to university. All of my education really that I've got now, I had when I started really in my 30s. So who am I to think that? And who can